Be it environmental, physical, scientific, or medicinal, Biologic will get to the heart of the matter. Coming up in today's program, communities are working together in one of Indonesia's poorest regions in a bid to save their marine environment and attract tourists to a stunning dive area. Concrete blocks with live coral on them have been dropped down to the ocean floor. The coral grows on average about an inch each year. And one of Britain's best known and respected inventors has successfully marketed a number of products, but he made his name with the bagless vacuum cleaner, the Dual Cyclone. Now he's gone quite a few steps further and invented a robotic vacuum cleaner that does the whole job for you. A British communications invention has sparked a worldwide technological revolution. The talking head satellite video phone is the newest tool being used by journalists to bring news direct to your television set. And a company that's making, wait for it, silk stockings, and at half the price of the larger fashion houses. Scientists at London's Imperial College have discovered that a form of glass substance known as bioglass encouraged diseased bone to repair itself. A British expedition to cross one of the last frontiers in the world, the 56-mile Bering Strait between Alaska and Siberia, suffered a minor setback on the Thames when the expedition vehicle sprang a leak and had to be ignominiously beached just past Westminster Pier. And this is Navajo land. The tradition of rug weaving is practiced and passed on from generation to generation. Using the dexterity passed on from years of honing this craft, a group of women is sewing the blue jumpsuits worn by NASA astronauts. The people of Nusa Tenggara Timur province in the eastern part of Indonesia are working with environmental organizations to reverse years of destruction by replanting coral reefs and mangrove forests. After decades of mismanagement of the reef areas and illegal dynamite fishing, the local population now says it's time to act. Many women sew traditional batiks, which take a month to complete each. The going price is $10. Perched in the north of Flores Island, the remote area of Riung is rich in natural beauty, but it's one of the poorest provinces in Indonesia. Little grows except rice and coconut trees. In the past, desperate fishermen would use a deadly mixture of kerosene and nitrate to bomb the reef and ensure a plentiful catch of fish. These are two such bombs, one made from glass, the other from plastic. For survival, the population is dependent on a length of coast which measures 219,000 kilometers, an area which has been declared a marine park. Here, fishing vessels come ashore after a long night at sea. Sometimes the catch is plentiful, sometimes there's nothing. It's unpredictable. Now the fishermen have different ideas. The World Wildlife Fund has regular meetings with the fishermen, and together they discuss their long-term needs and how best to look after the area. The World Wildlife Fund, along with more than 200 locals, dropped 90 concrete blocks with live coral down to the ocean floor. The coral grows on average about an inch each year. It was common to use large, fine mesh nets that damaged seagrass beds and caught juvenile fish. Now fishermen use fish platforms, line fishing and small nets. With local authorities, they're also keen to keep out outsiders. Despite some improvements, some areas of the reef will take years to recover. Since fishermen have, for the most part, stopped bombing the reef, the World Wildlife Fund has measured an increase of 4% in just over a year. The area is already attracting tourists, and if reefs are kept, it's likely to become more popular as a dive resort. As fishermen generally fish at night, their boats can also be rented during the day by tourists. In the past, mangroves at the edge of the sea were also chopped down. They're essential to stop soil erosion and act as a home for fish. World Wildlife Fund, along with the community, has embarked on an ambitious replanting program. A seed is taken from a mangrove tree and placed in a small pot with wet mud. It's left for 6 months and then replanted on the beach with a 90% success rate of taking root. In Ruing, there is an awareness that this kind of development needs to involve all levels of society. Maybe one day it could look like Cayos Cochinos, a string of small islands off the Caribbean coast of Honduras, an underwater paradise. Numerous species, including dolphins, fish, crustaceans, mollusks, and other invertebrates, give the barrier reef system its colourful appearance. James Dyson's vacuum cleaner factory and research centre is nestled in the rolling hills of Wiltshire. The site of the multi-million-pound company in the small village of Malmesbury has grown over the years. This modern, stylish building now houses the factory where 1,800 people work and 10,000 cleaners are made every day. But it wasn't always like this. It began with one idea James Dyson had while at home one afternoon. It was this idea that led James to invent what is now known as the dual cyclone vacuum. It presented a unique idea involving increased suction by removing the traditional vacuum cleaner bag. James believed that he would be able to significantly increase the amount a vacuum could pick up and improve efficiency through this process. But the road to commercial success for the dual cyclone was not a smooth one. He was so much in debt, he had to go and interest another manufacturer in it rather than making it himself. It took 3 years to find a manufacturer. Eventually, he caught the interest of a Japanese firm and struck a deal. The Japanese love high-tech appliances, and the vacuum became a hit within a very short time. Now the Dyson company is tackling washing machines. James maintains that if you actually hand wash clothes, you get them cleaner in 15 minutes than you get in 2 hours in a conventional washing machine. He realized that the action of hand washing is much more effective and at low temperatures than machine washing. In other words, the machine isn't actually washing the clothes, it's effectively giving them a great big soak. So he set about developing a machine that replicated hand washing. James has also been involved in the development and research of new products. And whenever possible, he pours his time into doing what he likes best, designing and inventing. The humble vacuum cleaner has come a long way since it was first patented in 1901 by Gloucester-born Cecil Booth. His early machine was the size of a milk float and had to be drawn to people's homes by a team of horses. Numerous other vacuum cleaners have been manufactured over the years. Designs were mostly heavy and slow and could only be afforded by the rich. But as time went by, vacuum cleaners became more sleek and inexpensive, and eventually part of everyone's home. The face of vacuum cleaning changed again with the introduction of Dyson's dual cyclone. And now designers and engineers at Dyson are continuing to pioneer new products. The very latest innovation to come out of the Dyson design team is the robotic vacuum cleaner. If we clean a room, we can't help but cheat sometimes and rush parts of it, which means we don't do it properly. Now, if you have a robot, it doesn't get bored and it will do it methodically and meticulously until it's finished the whole room. Not many people regard vacuuming or any other household chore as fun. The robotic vacuum is one of the first steps to be taken to remove the monotony of cleaning. All the user has to do is place the robot in the room, which needs to be cleaned, and switch it on. Then you just sit back and let the machine do the rest. The robotic vacuum is still having its finer mechanical points developed, but is expected to be released in the near future. James Dyson fought hard to build a successful company from his first idea of the dual cyclone, and the continual development of fresh, innovative ideas such as the robotic cleaner is important to him. Many inventors often face an uphill battle to get their products noticed. but James believes that they shouldn't give up. He took one idea and turned himself into one of the UK's best-known entrepreneurs. He produces half of the vacuums purchased in the United Kingdom and generates sales of more than £3 billion worldwide. And a small British business is giving designer brand manufacturers a run for their money with their traditionally made silk stockings. The festive season meant the stockings were being exported to countries all over the world. Christmas has always been a holiday associated with stockings. For Lawrence Rowe and his wife Lynn, this is a particularly busy time for their family-run company Bell Hosiery. Until September 2001, Christian Dior made the only pure silk stockings available in the UK at £40 a pair. Bell Hosiery offers stockings of the same high quality for around half that price. Now the husband and wife team are working flat out to make around 300 pairs every week. Pure silk stockings have always been the last word on glamour and style. Post-war, the arrival of cheaper man-made fabrics meant synthetic fibres dominated the market, despite the fact that silk is more robust and less likely to cause skin irritation. A pair of Bell Hosiery English silk stockings cost £19.95. And it's been hailed as the hottest media tool since the laptop. For a total cost of approximately £23,000, the Talking Head satellite video phone is being used by journalists competing to be the first to beam home the latest news from remote areas. The Talking Head was developed by 7E Communications, a small business on the outskirts of London, employing only 12 people. Demand for the device has grown considerably since the tragic events of September the 11th. Prior to this, the company website had an average of 10 hits a day. On the 12th of September, the number of hits rocketed to 35,000. CNN was the first newsroom to use the technology. In the competitive world of TV news, speed is everything. Executive news producer Mike McCarthy says that contrary to increasing pressure on journalists to file stories more quickly, the new technology has liberated his reporters. The major benefit of the video phones is that they enable pictures to come out of remote, inhospitable and often very dangerous areas, which allows viewers to bear their own testimony to the story. For now, staff at 7E are working around the clock to fulfill the backlog of outstanding orders for the Talking Head. Human beings replace bone cells throughout their life. When this process slows down, brittle bone disease or osteoporosis can strike. As we live longer, conventional joint replacements may need to be repeated several times at great cost to the patient. Bioglass is a silicon-based substance invented 30 years ago by Professor Larry Hench. It helps implants bond to human bone. Now the professor's team has discovered that bioglass works by activating the genes controlling the whole cycle of bone-growing cells. The team has also discovered a way of making bioactive foam versions of bioglass, a gene-activating scaffold on which cells from a patient's bone could be replicated. The new bone cells could then be implanted and used to regenerate a worn-out portion of bone, avoiding the need for an entire hip replacement. By discovering how bioglass stimulates the growth of new bone cells, scientists may also eventually understand how bone disease can be prevented. Conventional steel hip implants like this may become a thing of the past. This is Navajo land, 25,000 miles of seemingly endless geological art encompassing parts of Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. It's a nation within a nation, steeped in beauty and tradition. But more and more, the face of the Navajo landscape is changing. Economic development is being returned on the reservation, an area rich in natural and human resources. Many of the hogans that still dot the reservation were at one time the primary form of housing. Today it's in these hogans that the tradition of rug weaving is practiced and passed on from generation to generation. Using the dexterity gathered from years of honing this craft, a group of women is sewing the blue jumpsuits worn by NASA astronauts. Each suit requires some 150 separate sewing functions, and nearly all met NASA's rigorous acceptance standards. It's a long way from the Navajo Reservation to the shuttle simulators and training aircraft at Johnson Training Space Center in Houston, but it's the contrast that makes the relationship so intriguing. For the Navajos, the work marks another step in the road to economic self-efficiency. Sewing the astronaut suits using old-world skills in a modern-day effort. Every year, millions of visitors come to Washington, D.C. to tour the National Archives, America's largest storehouse of historic documents. To help monitor the aging process of important documents like the American Constitution, the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights, the National Archive installed a space-age camera designed by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. The National Archive asked JPL to look at what kind of technology could be utilized to provide a long-term monitoring solution. This new system would allow the archive to have baseline information that was taken at the beginning of the monitoring period and to be able to follow it in a very detailed fashion over a long period of time. Adapting technology usually used in deep space missions, the team at JPL developed a camera for just that use. The camera images the documents by scanning under a green light a handful of pre-designated postage stamp-sized areas. During each pass of the scanner over the document, 1 million bits of digital information are collected. The system has the capacity to go back year by year to the exact same spot in order to make comparative studies of the condition of the documents. In addition, a whole variety of image processing techniques can be used. In the case of the first of the two letters in the Constitution, the W and E of We the People, the black and white image can be color enhanced in order to more easily see areas where ink has flaked off the parchment. There are other needs for the system, including the ability to monitor the effect of exhibiting the document. By taking baseline information before a document is displayed, the system can determine what, if any, damage is occurring before it becomes problematic. The monitoring system can also be used to determine what kind of active measures can be taken to save or stabilize a document or piece of artwork. The imaging system represents a down-to-earth use of technology developed over the years for outer space probes like Voyager, which used it to capture incredible pictures of our nearby planets. It was a landmark day for Londoners. For the first time ever, they have their own lifeboat service, with 4 lifeboat stations providing 24-hour cover. The rescue operations will be coordinated by the Coast Guard Agency and carried out by the Royal National Lifeboat Institution. RNLI currently operates 223 lifeboat stations around the UK. The 4 extra stations along the tidal Thames are expected to provide a different sort of challenge to those normally faced by its crews. The service resulted from recommendations following the safety inquiry into the collision between a pleasure cruiser, the Marchioness, and the dredger Bowbell, which resulted in the loss of 51 lives. Many of those who died in the Marchioness disaster would have survived had a rapid reaction lifeboat service been in operation along the Thames. And still on the Thames, this is Snowbird 6, which had been due to be shipped to Alaska ready for the hazardous crossing of the Bering Strait. Everything seemed to be going according to plan as Ice Challenger expedition leader Steve Brooks and co-driver Graham Stratford took the vessel on what was to be its final Thames trial. Snowbird 6 is propelled by two giant Archimedes screws designed to bore through and climb over the sea of ice ridges. But just past the Houses of Parliament and without an iceberg in sight, she started to list heavily. It was all hands on deck as the vehicle builders, straight out of the next James Bond film, had to make an emergency and unscheduled stop on the muddy flats of the Thames. Expedition leader Steve Brooks was suitably phlegmatic about it all, saying at least we got a chance to demonstrate how we can come out of water and onto land. And later, back on dry land, or rather Cardigan Pier in Chelsea, he was still enthusiastic about the project. If we could crack the Bering Strait, said Steve, then the world becomes one landmass instead of two, and the concept of driving from New York to London becomes a reality. Last year, the British pair attempted the crossing, but the flotation tanks on their vehicle were damaged, and the expedition had to be aborted. What will happen this year? Will Snowbird 6 survive the polar bears, sub-zero temperatures and snowstorms, and a morass of moving ice? Nobody's banking on it after today's trial, but it's the spirit of adventure that counts. And finally, 400 school children converged on London's Science Museum for the launch of the Respect campaign. They met African Caribbean science professionals who will act as role models, encouraging by example. Current figures show that there are too few African Caribbean people studying science and technology. The £100,000 of funding will pay for more science trips, extra support for science coursework, and a drive to raise awareness of the achievements of the Afro-Caribbean communities in the fields of science and technology. Meeting their role models and taking part in the Respect campaign could help school children turn their natural enthusiasm into a career in the range of science careers on offer. Helping young people to believe that science has something exciting to offer them is something the UK's continued success in the science field depends on.